Why, good day, you beautiful souls. Happy Wednesday. Oh, it is another spiritual experience deep dive, and I'm excited to talk about today. It is my first CE5 experience. Now, what is CE5? It means human initiated contact with extraterrestrials, non human intelligence. And this was my time at ECETI Ranch over in Trout Lake, Washington. Now, I'm going to be diving into the CE5 experience itself, in addition to some of the other happenings that I've had on the ranch, not only my first time, but the second time. So don't forget, give the video a like. Really appreciate the support. And especially since the childhood encounter, I'm excited for this one because it's a lot less activating. Um, now, I want to preface this journey with the importance of the primary awakenings that I had gone through, the awakening of the mind, the heart, and the gut in previous years before this. And when looking back at my notes and calendar and things and little notebooks, I realized that it was about 2 years after I had gone through a lot of these major awakenings that I dabbled into I guess you would say, the more paranormal aspects or unknown aspects of life. And so if you haven't checked those ones out, I really do recommend it because they really set the tone for how my journey, I think, unfolded with the ECETI experiences over at the ranch, purely from the standpoint of the capacity to feel those energies and to even have that kind of, mastery of the intention and more of like that meditative spiritual state. So, wet the whistle, got a little protein shake. We're going to go back in time. It's September 20th to September 22nd in 2019. And my ex at the time, or I should say wife at the time, she was a normie. She still is kind of a normie from what I can tell. It's one of those things where there was a lot of aspects of my life unfolding and changing in the spiritual journey. And because I had been experiencing so many mystical and spiritual happenings and just very synchronistic, divine timing, very cinematic happenings, I really wanted to bring her in on the fold, open her perspective, open her beingness, because the only times that I found that she actually listened to me was when it benefited her. So in terms of ways to study for an exam, ways to actually like approach life, conflict resolution, rebuilding relationships, things like that. And I just wanted to show her that there is so much more out there and there is so much in this great mystery that we can't live in this realm of assumption and knowing, that it's very damaging to not only our relationship at the time, but it's damaging just to like the life experience that you can live. So I got the trip planned. We're going out there. Friday night, nothing really goes down. Really tired from work, so we kind of just pass out, and leads to a Saturday experience. We had been hiking and adventuring in Mount Adams and Trout Lake area. Really beautiful. Highly recommend. And I should even mention too, like even getting to the property, you can feel it. Like there's an energetic bubble that you just kind of like pop through. And even she was able to observe it. She noticed that like, it felt a little bit lighter, but also kind of, I don't want to say like intense, but she could feel that it was very charged. She just didn't know the words for it. But it's one of those things where it's like you go into this area and there's been so much intention and so much love and so much just, again, divinely aligned people in this place that the vibration's a little bit higher. So you can actually feel yourself kind of crossing that barrier when you get within a certain radius to the actual place. So Friday night, again, normal, nothing really happens. We jump into Saturday, go on adventures outdoors, and everyone's starting to break and go into one of like the main like hut areas or like main lodges because they film a radio show, like a podcast. So they're filming the podcast, and it's a little bit after dinner time, still in the evening, still really light out. And we decide to go to this meditation circle. And along the way, kind of walking through the I would say like the yard area, the big grass open field, prairie, we run into a woman from California. So we start chatting, and then we just all kind of like meander that way because we didn't really feel like going and sitting in the radio show. I really just needed to meditate just because there had been a lot of, I would say even just like conflict between my ex-wife and I. just from the hike, with just negativity and pessimism. So I was just like, I need to go meditate. You're more than welcome to come with. So she had a friend that she could talk to. So I went and sat down in the circle and started meditating. Now, outside, in terms of like the spatial aspect to it, the meditation, I would say like ring or a little gazebo hut was kind of like, it was facing Mount Adams. So I'm not sure directionality of it. So it'd be north from the main property. So it was in the prairie, and then you have some picnic benches, kind of like southeast a little bit, and then you have the lodge where everyone's actually in like the studio for the recording. So out of the entire property, it is us three in the meditation circle. And before I go, I see that someone's eating some burritos, their dinner, at the picnic benches facing Mount Adams, because it's beautiful. It's the picture that's in the description. It is an amazing place. I highly recommend it just to see the beauty of the mountain. And I see this rose quartz that I swear is like, the size of this pillow, like the size of my head, about. Yeah, I'd probably say the size of my head. And pick up this rose quartz, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna meditate with this. So I just like plop down, get it in the lap, and I just drop in to a very deep meditation. No breath work, nothing required. So it was already kind of one of those things where I was like, yeah, this quartz got the juice. Excuse me. And just the fact that the meditation ring had so much charge there itself, with people's altar items that they had left and just meaningful trinkets and things like that. It was a very, I would say it was just a very potent vibration that you're sitting in. And they're kind of talking a little bit, and I start to instantly get into my like expansive state. So when I'm really in that inner stillness, and those that tap into the sat song, you experience this, there's an unfolding that goes on where everything just drops internally, and you really do just start to feel that light, that love, that aroma of source. So I've been really mastering this since the awakening. So I was just marinating, and I start to feel this just like love in my chest, and I just got this big cheesy smile. And a few minutes go by, and all of a sudden I start to feel this other energy, and it too is love. But I know it's not mine, and I know it's not God's, because that's just like, I've been building that relationship for many years now. But I knew it was other than my beingness and who I was around, because at this point, when everything gets very, I would say, open and expansive in that state, I can feel the people around me. Things kind of drop. Sound doesn't necessarily stand out. Like if someone's snapping or someone's talking, or even just like the winds rustling, it all just kind of has the same bandwidth of like tone and volume. So I'm very like hyper aware, and it feels like it's like an arm's length away. And internally, I'm just like, oh, who are you? What is that? Like, I like that. Like, kind of like a what's up? Like, what's up? Real recognizes real. I feel your love. I see your love. And then all of a sudden, the three people, the ex-wife, the lady that we met from California, and the person at the picnic bench, they all just scream. They're like, whoa, which startles me. And I pop open, and I'm again sitting there meditating. I'm like, what? What's going on? And they're like, over on the mountain, there's this giant sphere of light that just like showed up. And I was like, well, what did it look like? What color was it? And they're like, it was like a red, orange. It was really fiery. It was super bright, and it was really big. And I should preface this, there's no air traffic around Matt Adams. It's very apparent to know that it's daytime still, little flashlights. You can see kind of people hiking every now and then. You can see what natural light looks like. And in terms of where it was showing in the image that's in the description, that cliff face is like a few hundred feet and a few hundred feet wide. It's like almost like a spooned out indent on the mountain. And it was like right over there where they were pointing. And I go, okay. And I tell my ex, and I'm like, hey, I was talking to, I think, who that is. And they're just like, and then they both just kind of look at me like I'm nuts. So I just go, wait, just hold up. So I drop in my meditation again, back into that love, back in that expansiveness. And this is only a few seconds. And I just go, hey, like, it'd be really cool if I could see you. And again, I don't know how I'm doing this. It's just your internal intuiting. I'm just speaking from the heart. So I ask, like, hey, I'd really like to see you too. And then I hear the oh again. So I open one eye, and now it's like going from it's like red and orange, like what they were talking about over in the mountain. And it's huge, just beautiful, just sphere of light. And it's kind of just, I would say, like sparkly, and it starts like flashing to like this greenish color, and then it kind of flashes fully green. And I'm just like, yo, like I'm talking with them right now. And then they're just like, oh my God, like he wasn't kidding. Like, well, what are you guys saying? I was like, I don't know. I'm not really getting anything back. I just feel their love. Let me try something. I'm gonna ask it to change colors. And they go, well, what color? And I was like, I don't know, like purple or something. So I dropped back in again, and instantly feeling the love and instantly feeling their love and their connection. And it's just like it's a very light energy, but you can tell it's pretty strong. Like I can feel that there is a lot of gusto on the other end, and not in like an aggressive way at all, but it just feels very, I would say, like voluminous. Like just there was a lot of it. And I go, would you guys want to change to purple? And I kind of like showed the color in my head of what I was thinking. And I just said thank you. And all of a sudden, again, they scream again. That's my signal. My eye pops open, and it goes from that red, orange to green, and it starts flashing between those. And then it just goes to the purple that is in the image that I put in the description. And it's like this, I would almost call it the the crown chakra, like violet purple, like a little bit of like notes of like pink and some like dots of red. And I think the thing about the sphere is that it was almost like I would like what you think of like a star would look like. Like it had texture to it. It wasn't just completely orbed out, but it was just like shimmering and shining. And then it was showing for like a few seconds, and I just felt like the greatest, like, yeah, that was fun, like energy coming through, because I just started cheesing like uncontrollably, and then it just vanished. And then I tried to bring it back. I tried to drop it in the meditation, and then it was just like nothing. There was nothing coming in on the other side. Um, yeah, and then kind of just flexed a little bit, because told the ex at that point. I was like, "Hey, like, pretty cool trip, right? Like, happy you came, huh?" Um, and then we all just kind of got into a really cool conversation. And like the guy at the picnic bench was just like, that was not. So then, they explained the things to him, and like we were all talking about it. And then the radio show ended like maybe like half hour after that. And, that's the official like CE5 ending of that experience. But the the rest of these experiences while at that ranch, especially that first trip, were pretty intense as well, because the table tipping ceremony that was after the radio show, everyone kind of cleared out, got some tea, and then everyone went back in for a table tipping ceremony. And it's James, and I can't remember the name of the other woman, but they start going into this, this little ceremony. And they start kind of like calling in things just to see, like, hey, like, benevolent things, if you want to come by, say what's up, come through. And the tying point from the CE5 experience itself to this was when they had gone through a few of them. I didn't really feel any connection, but when they said the Pleiadians, which I think is pretty cliche, I think a lot of people talk about Pleiadians and things of that nature. Um, but it was like he said Pleiadians, and like when that hit, I felt kind of like you get a foam finger on your hand, like giant. And I don't really pay any attention to a lot of these things, or like where things come from, anything like that nature. But everything just felt giant within my body, because I was still like dropped into my meditation at this point, sitting in the chairs. And the body itself felt like it was like 20 feet tall, like kind of like Attack on Titan style. Like I felt like I was like 20 meters up. And it was notes of that same love that I had felt in the CE5, when I was actually dropping in the meditation circle. So fast forward to, some of these other ones that he was going through. So like they came in, they went, that feeling kind of went away. And then I believe it was like the Lyrans, the Taiga people. And I felt like that same kind of like love, didn't feel the big body thing. And then I think it was also like Arcturians or something like that. felt the same kind of thing where it was like kind of felt like a radiant light, and then still felt a little bit of notes of that love. So table tipping ceremony ends, and I just like go up to James and I'm just talking to him like, hey man, like there was an experience over at the mountain. Like, I had this meditation, like when everyone went into the radio show, only a few of us saw it, but like I was dropping in and kind of like called out to this love that I felt. And it was this huge sphere of light over on the mountain. And he's just like, oh yeah, we're at on it. And I told him like that little like spot that's kind of like that vertical cliff face looks like it's spooned out. He's just like, oh yeah, that's like a portal, like something like a gateway or something like that. And again, like I don't know, yo. I just go with my personal experiences and what I've actually witnessed in the flesh, in the waking state, in the I would say like potentially out of body conscious states. And when I told him about some of the experiences like the big body, he kind of confirmed the things that I was feeling with the Pleiadians. He's like, "Oh yeah, like they're huge," um, which is always interesting to me again because the spiritual experiences that had just stemmed from the awakening experiences and the descriptions, like those completely brought me into a different state of understanding of energy. I've felt myself huge, immersing in the full room. So to have that come up in this type of setting and scenario was actually really fascinating to me, and got me just even more curious. And I really couldn't recommend ECETI Ranch enough. Like, if you ever get the chance to, please go. It's worth the trip. It's worth the investment. You don't need to do any of the crazy festivals and things that they have there. Just go for a night sky watch in the weekend, and great place to camp, great company, great conversations, like guaranteed. Um, and I would say that night, that was the first time that I had seen so many, I would say, orbs with the naked eye. And they're probably about, like yay big, like half a face, mouth size. And they're just floating around in the field. I don't know what they are, but that is one of the coolest places where there's just so much activity. Like, you're bound to see something just really magical. I know that a friend let me borrow some like night vision binoculars or goggles, something like that. And even just looking in the sky and the stars, you would see these things just coming in and then just doing like 90-degree turns. So that was like my first chance to really see a lot of these like ET crafts, you could say, just in such a high volume in such a short period of time. Hundreds. Like, it would be a thing if you just saw like one or two, it'd be like, oh, it's kind of a flop. But like from that experience in the meditation circle, seeing the light in the mountain, to just seeing all the different orbs, to even seeing all of the like the stuff in the sky just constantly moving. Like, there's so much going on around our planet that we just have no idea. And the cool thing is that they do track satellites, so you can see what are the satellites. They're very straightforward. They move in that linear fashion, but there's quite a few things you see that are just going really, really slow and then boom, just take off at like crazy angles. And I would say one of the coolest ones from that night that I remember like very distinctly, because we all thought it was a satellite because it was kind of like tracking one. So someone had a book and they had like an app and they were like, oh yeah, no, that one's a satellite. And then you see it start to kind of just like go ahead of the satellite. And then it took one turn, two turns, and then it shot in a third direction. And you can see it like leaving because it got smaller and smaller and dimmer, and it just left the skyline. Like, it was nuts. And yeah, so I would say, like, if you're really looking to test the waters with this type of, paranormal happenings, UAP stuff, go to ECETI Ranch, Trout Lake in Eastern Washington. Highly recommend. Now, the second trip was in August 2022 with an ex-girlfriend. And that was just a one-nighter. Just went up there just out of whim because couldn't really get a hold of people. So just talked and got some stuff like scheduled in. But it was around Lionsgate period. And I think it was the 11th. I didn't actually have any notes. For some reason, there's like a little gap in pictures. So I'm just kind of deducing it. But it was around that time. And what was wild was when we had gone back to the property, they had completely changed like everything. Apparently they had some, spiritual attacks and things of that nature. Kind of natural when you have a big property like that where you have a lot of people just coming in and out, that you get some bad eggs that consciously try to leak the energy and consciously plant things. And this is why you always have to be really careful when it comes to just, I would say, anything otherworldly or spiritual itself is protection. Because they had to clean like the whole place. The energy felt way different. It wasn't nearly as potent as when you got there. And they ended up having to get rid of like a lot of these really just like loving, powerful items that, you know, helped with the lift the vibration of that place. Um, but they did a deep clean, so I'm happy to hear that they got things back on track. So my ex and I, we went out to the meditation circle, and we both drop into like a very deep meditation relatively quickly. And this is where things get a little sus. Like they get a little sketch, not gonna lie. Like, so I remember being in my meditation and going through my usual kind of like energetic protocols just to kind of like ground and just to drop into the breath. And I start feeling almost like a ripple kind of coming up the entire body. And it's like the Matrix. You remember when he eats the pill and then he starts to have that metal stuff going down, and it's like that, like in the mouth, and all of a sudden he wakes up in the pod. It's kind of like that feeling. Like it was kind of like not necessarily like cold, but it was very distinct, like almost like a, dare do I say it, it came up naturally just now, but it was like a scan, which makes me a little uncomfortable saying that right now. But so it kind of felt like a scan kind of coming up from like the feet up. And as it was coming up the body, I feel it kind of getting a little bit more oscillating, a little bit more of a vibration. And by the time it got to my head, it was like full blown, like, and then next thing you know, I'm laying out in the field, and so is she. And we both just kind of like open our eyes at this, what I think is probably the same time. And I go, and I'm looking at the sky first. I should actually, this is what happened. So I'm looking at the sky first, just thinking like, what the just happened? And then I look over, and she just like kind of like creeps her eyes open, and she's like looking, facing and laying at me. And we both just kind of look at each other like slightly concerned, and then just kind of like pop up. And I'm just like, did you like fall asleep? And she goes, I don't know if it was like a falling asleep. I felt like I just like passed out. And I said the same thing. And like an hour had gone by. So yeah. Um, yeah, we both had a good time with that one. We were both pretty concerned. And honestly, I hadn't really thought even about like the childhood stuff or anything like that. But I definitely felt like there might have been something there. Just the fact when I was looking up, it felt like I was looking at something. That was just like the kind of freshest thought, almost like when you leave a dream and you kind of just like trying to like grasp at it. It kind of felt like I was like looking and watching something above me. Um, yeah. And it was somewhat cloudy during that time of the day, and then it actually cleared at night. But that same second night, the big infrared light cannon came out. You can see orbs flying in the field. You look at the stars, you see all the different things shooting around, jerting around. And it was another beautiful experience in that sense, other than the weird missing piece of time, which I just have to say, like, I really appreciate y'all that are dropping into these. Um, I've had my reservations again about talking about this stuff because I usually try to keep this stuff pretty personal, just since it's unexplained and I don't really have any answers about it. But it's been really cool to find more of those answers through just posting stuff here and posting stuff on Reddit and things of that nature. And when I make the post, I'll leave that in the description, so be sure to check it out if you like to read things. But yeah, I hope that this demystifies things. And I'm actually going to drop the ECETI link in the description as well, because they're some cool people. James is a cool dude. I've had a few conversations with him. I had to talk to him both times I went. And both times there really haven't been that many people that have like taken his attention. So we've had some really cool chats. And yeah, there's a lot of cool things out there. There's a lot of different like energy vortexes and different places throughout the world that have a lot of potent energy. And if you're near one, go check it out. There's no harm that's going to be done, and especially if you go into things being like very protected and grounded. And I know even more so now, like the next trip out there with the new partner, she's gonna love it, and we're gonna have a great time. But um, yeah, I would say just like anything, especially with like the CE5 experiences, you always have to just be really careful with who you do that stuff with. Um, I feel very fortunate that in that one, I could kind of pull my own weight just because of my frequency. But again, I give all credence to God and those awakenings that I had gone through, that I have that capacity to kind of like call things out. Um, and I haven't really cultivated it. It'd be cool to try, because one of the things that I do know through just my own practices with CE5, because I had a little tiny group, shout out Allery and Ashley, um, that, yeah, we had some pretty mystical experiences during our drop-ins. And just from cultivating that aspect of my own personal meditations, it really does work at the level of the heart. It's one of those things where when you think of a loved one, it's kind of like that same levity and brightness that you feel. That's that energy that you need to really carry and radiate. And that is the beacon that kind of calls things out, that I would say have been in the coolest experiences. And it's never good to try to force it or to practice those things with people who really aren't about it. I will say that now, and I'll get into that into the next one next week with the UAP, like the physical manifestations of some UAPs, because I remember having to like talk someone off a cliff, so to speak, because they kind of had a mental break. It had been their first time seeing anything like that, and they were not expecting that weekend. So it's always just being mindful of like who you're hanging out with and who you're doing stuff with. I hate to sound like a parent, but things get pretty crazy in this world, and it's always best to stay in the love and the light and grace of God, and to stay in that highest vibration and frequency of love. Because if you don't, you will fuck around and find out. And it's not best to find out in these things, because it might break you. And there's been a lot of cases like that with different counties and experiencers who have had really negative, traumatic experiences. And life with people and peopling is traumatic enough. So there's no reason to add that exponent of the NHIs, the non-human intelligence, or ETs. Yeah, but I would say, the first CE5 and the first and only solo CE5 that I've done that's had some cool contacts. Um, yeah, that was a beautiful one. And as it goes, it was always incredibly validating and kind of confirming that it's like, hey, you're on the right path and you made the right choices and you're doing great. But yeah, that love that I felt from that craft, I don't know. I don't know what it was. It didn't feel like just a few people. It felt like a lot. It was a lot of love. And it was different. It was different than ours. It was different than human. It was different than mine. And I think that's the beauty of it. It just goes to show that, whether people see things as angels and demons, I really don't think everything is so like binary and one track like that. God is infinite, and for us to ever have the arrogance that we can lump it all into an assumption that we think we know best, I think that's just one of those human fallacies. And I try to be very open. And I would like to say that if anything is like angels and demons, that was definitely an angelic encounter. It felt really pure. And I think the aspect of that kind of telepathic, conscious, soul to soul, heart to heart communication is you can tell what's what. I've talked about this in previous thought songs and things like that in the meditations, but you know, energy has a lot of different notes and flavors. There's like a cleanliness to it, a purity to it, a lightness to it, a density, like an aroma, a color, a pull, and all of that was so pure and so strong. It really is an experience that just sticks with me. And anytime I see the mountain in like pictures and things like that flash, those flashes of light and color, like really stand out. And the picture again in the description is pretty close. I couldn't get the details of like the different dots because that would have just taken way too long in like the photo editing stuff. But there, that core of like white light in the middle, and it just kind of radiates this like beautiful little violet color. Mwah. So pretty. It was so pretty. But with that, thanks for dropping in. You made it this far. Don't forget to smash that like, share. Let me know if you have any encounters or things in the comments. Always happy to chat. And with that, may the fruit of knowledge offer a seed. And in that seed, may your love, will, and intuition give life and nourishment, for a tree shall grow. And in its shade may you find peace, and offer peace to all whom ask. Namaste. I bow to the divine within you. Love you so much. Thanks for dropping in. Peace.